Alright, greetings, BlazeLeeDragon here, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Wheel of the Year. I think I've got another video on this, but this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to cover a little bit about when the days are actually celebrated, and about how there is a difference between different Wheel of the Years. There's not necessarily the Wheel of the Year. Different cultures, different practices, different spiritualities and faiths have different versions of it, and it's very interesting to consider. Now, a lot of people are drawn to celebrating the Wheel of the Year. Why? Because it's one of those things that comes from our heritage, from our traditions. It's something old, and people like old stuff. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people are drawn to it, especially those who follow what's often called the old ways. Now, of course, they say the old ways because this is things that our ancestors used to do, or at least we believe they used to do. Just for the simple fact that a lot of it has been dying out and snuffed out and pushed off to the side. So it is very hard. And it's very hard, especially for individuals, even some people watching videos online or reading books. They don't necessarily have the resources available to them. So, you know, they're picking through what they can to try to piece back together what feels right, what calls to them from their, bloodlines and their heritage. Reclaiming it, so to speak. So, obviously, when you talk about the Wheel of the Year, you're talking about different festivals or holidays, depending on how you want to say it, and it's basically, times of the years where you're celebrating something, you're having fun, you're having a party. Of course, a lot of these that we have today are influenced by a lot of these ancient traditions, and this, of course, brings frustration to some people. Some people don't like that and they want to break away. Some people prefer to stand out. Some people just want to honor what used to be, and some people just want to find themselves. There's many reasons for people to celebrate or honor or acknowledge or follow the Wheel of the Year. Now, with this in mind, depending on where you are, where you live, northern or southern hemisphere, it's going to alter what days are what. Now, of course, I live in America, good old US of A, and there are holidays which are considered the national holidays. Like many others in the US, I myself don't really recognize or acknowledge or celebrate most of the ones that are considered national holidays, just for the simple fact that a lot of them do have a religious innuendo and overtone to them that I'm personally not comfortable with. And I'm not the only one. I mean, there's tons of people. They follow their own thing. I mean, there's tons of celebrations and holidays that have nothing to do with what I'm going to focus on in this video, and that's the Wheel of the Year. There are tons of other celebrations and different traditions, and some that coincide with the Wheel of the Year, that they're like the same day and very similar to the same celebration, but not necessarily. So let's discuss some of them, and let's first talk about the Wheel of the Years I'll be discussing. So the first Wheel of the Year I'm going to discuss is the Neo-Druid Wheel of the Year, because Druidry is awesome. I love Druidry, and I got really, really, really cool paperwork from England about it. Tons of stuff to read there that I've been reading through. It's a lot of fun, and I'm going to share little bits of it. And then I'm also going to be talking about the Heathen Wheel of the Year, which some people call it the Heathen Wheel of the Year, the Asatru Wheel of the Year, the Odin Wheel of the Year, for Odinists that follow Odinism. The thing is, those two wheels are completely different. Then there is also, you've heard references to the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. Now, let's first discuss the Wheel of the Year versus the Wiccan Wheel of the Year versus the Heathen Wheel of the Year. First thing I want to say is, the Heathen Wheel of the Year, it is not the same wheel. It is not the same holidays. Many of them, like I said, are very close and very similar, but it is not the same wheel. We're going to go over some of those. I pulled up some notes and took some notes on my computer just to discuss them. So, since I don't have them all memorized, since I don't necessarily follow all of them. Now, the other one would be, of course, not just necessarily the Druid Wheel of the Year, but just a general Wheel of the Year. This is actually different than the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, and this, of course, might upset some people, but there is no such thing as the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. And the reason I say that is because each Wiccan you talk to, since essentially most Wiccans are taking a base idea and making it their own, stereotypically, then they're not all following the exact same Wheel of the Year. They're pronouncing it differently, they're doing it on different days, there's a little bit of argument. Basically, each individual has their own version of the Wheel of the Year. So there's not one universal, this is the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, all Wiccans follow it. It just doesn't exist. So let's start with the heathen wheel of the year. And because we're going to briefly touch upon that, since I don't know much about it myself. And then we're going to go and we're going to discuss some of the holidays and what days are celebrated on. And there is some argument and debate on when they're celebrated. And that's going to, I think, make for an interesting video. Hopefully you think so too. So let's begin. Alrighty then. Now, the wheel of the year for the heathens, they have some major holidays, to my understanding, that they celebrate. And this particular one that I was able to find, because I found various ones, and there's some that go over in my one book, which, if you're interested in Asatru, I'll eventually make a video about it, but I want to do more reading and research. Living Asatru by Greg Dukes Shetler. That's actually a pretty decent read. I like it. I like the way he writes, and I like his theories on it, especially because he starts the book by saying this is his take on it. I respect that, because that's how I try to present my videos. This is my take! So, let's see. They have Midsummer, Harvest, Winter's Night, Midwinter, Disting, and Ostara. Now, those are like some of the major ones. Of course, there's tons little detailed ones, like feast days honoring the birth of Freya. Midwinter Blot. Now, Blot is, it's Icelandic, and it means, like, blessing. So it's like a blessed day type of a deal. Let's see, Midwinter Blot. And if I butcher the pronunciation on these, I'm sorry, but I'm not my grandmother, so I don't speak Icelandic. So I'm going to attempt to pronounce them the best I can. And the pronunciation may be off. The, let's see, Thora Blottar, Ingona's Day, Old Disting, Jordan de Februr, Summer's Blot, Festival of Midnight Sun, Whitsunden, Fest of Suna, Odin's Ordeal August. Oh, that's in August, sorry. Or it's just Odin's Ordeal. Or Woden, if you want to pronounce it that way. Frey Faxi, the Festival of Urda, Leif Erikson Day, the Feast of the Fallen, Day of Idalir, Wayland's Day, Day of Remembrance for Sveitigor, Yule, Madrisnach, oh, can't pronounce that one, and then, of course, Twelfth Night. So, yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of holidays there, and most of those do not fall into the traditional category of what most people think of when they hear Wheel of the Year. I don't know what most of those days are revolving around. Now, I do know that the Asatru faith, or Odinism, however you want to pronounce it, and that's modern. That's a modern adaptation. As far as I can tell, there was no official name to separate it. Asatru is what we call it today. Or, like I said, Odinism is another word for it. We call it today. So that's also, from what I understand, a revival movement. And the holidays and the way that they practice is more about honoring the gods or goddesses, all of them, in deed and action and who you are and how you carry yourself. Not so much worship. So that's kind of neat. Kind of separates from what you can traditionally consider paganism, I suppose, because once again, they like to separate it by calling it heathenism. So that's kind of interesting. I just thought I would mention that first. So there are different wheels. Let's talk about the Druid Wheel of the Year. And let's also talk about, too, that when we're talking about the Wheel of the Year, originally it wasn't about worship or holidays, holy day. It was about, they were festivals, they were times of the year when you did stuff, and you were simply, hey, this time of the year came around, this is when we get stuff done. As an example, in November, like the beginning of November, this is when it's getting cold and frozen. So this is when you're butchering your livestock and salting them and making sure you have food throughout the winter. So this was the time of preparing for winter. And then, of course, when you come around here towards like February, this is the day where basically births are happening. It's the beginning of spring and stuff like that, and children are being born. So that's a good part there. And then you start coming around towards May, and that's basically the time for sex and breeding and having even more kids and things like that. So February being new life, and then May being all the young growing up and having more kids. And then, of course, you have your time when you're starting to come around towards August and stuff, and that's when things start, it's time to start harvesting and collecting and gathering all your stuff together. So these were like points throughout the year that you were getting stuff done. They were big changes. So these 4 points are eventually adapted into our modern festivals that are like, you know, the big major sabbats, and of course there are those holidays that we have now that are even recognized here in America that still are very close to them, very similar with the way that they're celebrated, but they all spawn off from original tribal days of just getting stuff done. It was the time of the year to get things done. Big changes for how you lived, you know, in your daily life, the seasonal changes. And some people will call these the solar days, and then of course there's also the lunar days, and these are some people call these the minor festivals compared to the major festivals. There's 8 in the traditional wheel of the year that most people think of and assume like, oh, that's the wheel of the year. And with the lesser ones, they're usually, you know, celebrated in between, and these are your solstices and your equinoxes. So let's talk about some of the names of these. So the first one, which I've recently created a video on that just passed, is Samhain. Now, of course, Samhain, many people see this spelling Samhain, and they're like, how do you get a wa? Isn't that like a Samhain? And that's just because the M and the H makes a W sound. This is, you know, a Gaelic word, and there's debates on how it's pronounced. Watch my other video. But this one here is actually celebrated on November 1st, and I'll get into that later. A lot of people think it's on October 31st, and that's just not the case, and I'll explain why. I've got good rationale here. I know, 11-minute video, you're sticking with me, I appreciate it. Actually, almost 12 minutes now. So, there's, of course, you know, Samhain. Then, of course, we move on, and then we come into Olbenarthen, which is also known as the winter solstice. You know, this is, it depends on the tradition, of course, that you're doing, but some people also refer to this, I believe this is the one that they call Yule. Yep, this is also often referred to as Yule. I'm sure many of you have heard of that, but it's actually one of the solstices. It's the winter solstice, which actually there's Dongzi, which, I'm sorry, my Chinese is so poor, but Dongzi is also in December on the 21st, and that's basically has to do with celebrating family and eating together, and they have these like little sugar dumplings that they eat, and that's a Chinese tradition. Once again, interesting that there are other holidays and traditions that are not part of the Wheel of the Year that still reflect similar practices. Just like with Samhain, there's other people that honor the Day of the Dead and stuff like that, and ancestors, and like I said, even with the heathen holidays, it looked like they had Samhain listed, but I think they call it something different, maybe like Winter's Night or something like that. Don't quote me on that. Look it up. But yeah, it's a tradition that's celebrated by others. Let's see. The next one, of course, being Imbolc, and Imbolc being, of course, February 1st. Once again, there's a debate on that as well. We'll discuss that. And then, of course, the next one would be Alban Eiler, which is the spring equinox. And my Welsh is really bad, so I'm sorry. I don't speak Welsh, but that's the way that they're presented in this particular version of Neo-Druidry, Neo being new, a revival movement. And then, of course, there's Beltane, sometimes called Beltane. There's different ways of pronouncing it. And, of course, this one's in May 1st. And then, of course, you have Alban Heffen, which is the summer solstice. Sometimes I think this is the one that's often referred to as midsummer, also, by some traditions. And then there is Lunasan, which is, of course, August 1st. And some people call it Lugnazda, Lunasan, Lugnazda. There's different ways of pronouncing that one as well. And then we have Alban Elfid, and that's the autumn equinox. So that's the full year there, and that's the 8 major ones that you'll usually see. Now, let's talk about the day that they're actually on. And this is something interesting that I've personally discovered for myself. And this is something that people love to debate and argue about. Like, it's on this day. No, it's on this one. And everybody gets all mad about it. Well, here's the thing. If you look at it, there are 12 months in a year. There are 4 major or solar days. And there are 4 minor or lunar days. So what we actually have is, if you look at the wheel, there is literally 1 month where you're going to have no holiday, and then you're going to have a major, and then you follow that with a minor, and then nothing, and then a major, and then, you know, so it actually follows around like that. So if you actually go at the first, it makes sense. Now, there's another thing to consider with that. These were originally, like I said, festivals. They were times of the year. They happened for multiple days. They were like 3 or 4 days at a time, weeks at a time. You know, when you're, like I said, during Samhain, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm saying it's November 1st, and some people, no, it's October 31st. It's like there's this debate there, but essentially it's the entire time period, because that was originally, like I said, when you butchered your livestock and salted them up and prepared them for the winter so that you could get through the winter. So it was a time period. You didn't get it all done in one day, and you also celebrated in between. So keep that in mind. Now, with my theory of the whole done on the 1st. So if you check this out. So let's take January. January is the beginning of the year. There is no, and also, all major on the 1st, all minor on the 21st. Something else to keep in mind. So we have, and then it kind of matches. Once again, it mixes together. So you have January, it's a completely blank month where there's nothing. Then you come into February, and on February 1st, you have Imbolc. Then after February, you come over here into March, and on March 21st, you have, sometimes pronounced, you know, or referred to as Ostara. And then you have, after March, you have, January, February, March, April. Sorry, bad with months. April, you have nothing. Then you come into May. May 1st is Beltane. Then you come into June. June 21st, you have your Midsummer. And then July, you have nothing. August 1st, you have Lunasun. Then, let's see, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, which of course would be the minor coming next, would be the 21st, you have Mabon, which is like your harvest one. And then after September, you have October. You have nothing in October. Then November 1st, you have Samhain. And then December 21st, you have Yule. And then January, you have nothing. So if you follow that pattern and you actually go with the wheel and you look at it, you literally have a month of nothing. Then you have a major minor, which is always on the 1st, 21st. Nothing. 1st, 21st, nothing. 1st, 21st. And it makes like an equal pattern around. It's like this complete wheel. So just something to consider. You know, maybe you like that idea, maybe you don't. Like I said, some people will do Samhain on the 31st. Some people will do it for numerous days. There are individuals that when they do Samhain, they'll do it at midnight, which guess what? That's November 1st now. So it's completely up to you how you do it. It's not worth arguing or debating. If there is a way that you do it and a tradition that works for you and you've done it for a while, stick with it. Don't, just because I'm saying this in this video, and even if it makes sense to you, pick what works for you. You know, this is your path. You have no one to answer to but yourself. Okay, off my soapbox. Now, that pretty much covered everything that I wanted to discuss. Wow, 17-minute video. Nobody's going to watch the whole thing. Oh, who likes to sit for 20 minutes? Not me. So, thank you for watching. If you're actually still watching it, thank you for sticking with it. You know, give me a thumbs up. Like the video, and actually no, thumbs up is on Facebook. Yeah, but no, or is it on here? Yeah, like it. You know, do the thumbs up. Yeah, it's a good video. Leave comments below, leave feedback, ask for new videos. Feel free to leave responses or your thoughts, or make a video response if you'd like to discuss it. You know, just, hey, let's have a nice discussion. And of course, yeah, thank you for watching as always. I'm BlazeLeeDragon. This is my little video extended about the Wheel of the Year, and I'll try to get back to you about something else soon.